Hello and welcome to another episode of Ringside Fracas. I'm your host Naim, and today I've got Adam joining us. Adam, how are you, bro?
Yeah, how's it going, Naim? You're right, man.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
good.
it's
Yeah,
busy, isn't it?
I answered that back like I'm Dubois, bro. I don't know what the hell's going on, but there you go.
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah. You even have that happening this week with Daniel Dubois getting in front of the cameras again and kind of embarrassing himself again. But yeah, it's a busy week, isn't it? I mean, we had the Usyk Dubois 2 rematch be announced at the start of the week, and tickets already went on sale. I got my tickets. I'll be there. Whoever's going to be there, I'll see you
I
there.
got mine as well.
It'll be
Yeah, I don't think they're selling like hotcakes. So if you want to watch some good boxing, by all means, I'm sure you can find them still
no.
on ticket. Oh
I'm
yeah,
still seeing. Like I went on it today at lunch, and I saw that the still rows being empty rows, and there's still so many tickets on sale. So it's not, yeah, like you say, it's not the most in demand fight at the moment, but it'll be fun to watch, especially Wembley Stadium. It's always fun, and Usyk and Dubois doing again. The first fight was still fun to watch, so I assume the second one will be even more fun with some jeopardy involved in it. So it'll be good to see that. But this week just packed. It's just packed back to back to back weekend. This is a very stacked weekend in terms of the names that are involved. Some of the biggest names basically in boxing are involved this weekend. As a whole, the weekend itself, are there any fights that are particularly mouthwatering? Not really. These are all just name value fights rather more than the actual fights we wanted to see. But some of them, apparently Turkey's got plans for most of these guys for their next fights. So these are just interim fights. So you just gotta watch and see in betweens. But yeah, we're gonna break it down day by day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, we've got the main fight of the card. Ryan Garcia making his return after failing his PEDs test against Devin Haney, taking on Rolly Romero in Times Square. Again, I just don't know how that's going to work. The whole logistics behind putting a boxing event in Times Square and you haven't sold any tickets for it or anything like that. But this is an interesting fight. It's a fight that I think a lot of people in general before, like a couple of years ago, wanted to see because they've had history, Ryan and Rolly. Ryan's a great counterpuncher, and Rolly is Rolly. There's a R word I want to use for him. I'm not going to use for him. But Romero, that's the word. I don't know what anyone else thought of. Anyway, Rolly can punch hard. He punches like a mule, but beyond that, there's no other jeopardy. But with Ryan Garcia, who's quite chinny, this was always a matchup people wanted to see, especially with the sparring footage that always came up between them that came out from years ago. It's fun. It'll be fun. It'll be a violent fight. Both don't have the best defense. Both can punch hard. I mean, Ryan's ability is more on speed than it is on actual power, and Rolly's the opposite. It's not speed. He's actually quite slow with his punches, but it's more being able to hunker down and punch hard. But I'm curiously interested. I'm going to watch this fight, and interesting to see how Ryan Garcia especially looks at 147 because there's that welterweight now. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares at that weight class. What are your thoughts when this fight got announced and what you think about it now?
Yeah. So I think I'm happy with this fight just because of the two brilliant personalities, and I've started to change my outlook a bit on boxing. Of course, we always want the best fighting the best, but sometimes you need certain personalities fighting certain personalities just to kind of lift up the sport as a whole. I mean, a great example would be the fight last week where you could almost call it a circus fight. In my opinion, it was, but it was for the betterment of boxing. And I feel like Ryan versus Rolly is one of those fights. You have two American fighters of Hispanic origin. The pressers have been absolutely hilarious. I mean, say what you want about Rolly Romero, yeah, but he is one of the funniest boxers in today's sport. And they're just personalities that get people talking about the sport again, And I feel like the past couple of years, boxing has become quite niche down, and now what Turkey's trying to do is make it the mainstream sport of combat once again. And with this card that he's put on, like you said, I don't know how the logistics are going to work But I think it's a very exciting, it's almost like it's not about making profit. This is just about putting boxing back to where, you could say its heyday started in New York. And I think with Ryan Rowley, in terms of the actual fight itself, like you said, you have a guy who's insanely fast against Rowley, who hits really hard. Not the best defensively. I mean, personally, what I'm going to say is I think Ryan should be able to see out the victory. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few upsets during this card. I think every one of these fights could potentially have an upset. So even though they're not the names that we want to see against each other, these fights I think are setting up for a great landscape for boxing as a whole. And I think Ryan, it's a cracker in my opinion. They're both very offensively minded, and they're going to come forward. There's not going to be much defense on display, and I can see it really being a fight full of maybe full of surprises. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this fight. I think Ryan's been out for a year, so the sharpness might not be there early on. But the problem with Rowley is he's been battered twice in the last two years. Obviously, against got countered against Tank, and just got absolutely smashed from that. And then Pitbull Cruz completely dominated and destroyed him in 8 rounds and really battered him. It's hard to progress from those fights, and he's only had one fight since the Pitbull loss against Manuel Jaimes, and that went all 12 rounds. And then Abdullah Mason got in with the same fighter and beat the crap out of him for 4 rounds and stopped him. It kind of does show you a bad loss can have a big effect on the fight, and I think Rowley is on the back end of that, and I think he will cause Ryan some issues because Ryan has some issues when it comes to fighters that come forward. They can punch hard because there is that kind of, he stiffens up a bit, and he does get worried about whether or not he can take a shot, because he took shots against Tank and he took shots against Luke Campbell, for example, clean, and he can get back up, but he's just very stiff about taking it. He can't move his head off the line, and he's always looking for it. And when you're looking for it too much, sometimes you freeze when you see it coming. That's what happens a lot to him. So I do expect Ryan to get hit. I don't expect him to go down though, because Rowley's very slow with his punches. He's quite slow. Ryan is the more polished boxer here, and I think he's going to be able to get on his jab. He's going to be able to keep things long, and then when Rowley opens up, he'll counter him with that quick left hook that he's got. I think Derek James will literally be getting onto him to work on just focusing on the basics, getting the jab and the right hand off, hitting a few combinations when you're close to Rowley, and then finding those quick counters when Rowley overextends. And I think towards the middle of the fight, you'll see Ryan get his timing down. He'll be able to figure out how awkward Rowley is, and he'll be able to land a left hook that will put him down. I wouldn't be surprised if it went all 12, because again, out for a year, you're not taking the Austrian anymore, so that's also letting you down a bit. So the timing, the speed, the power is not all there the same as what it used to. But I just think Rowley is he just can't defend properly. His only way to defend shots is to throw back, and even then, when he does throw, he's not the biggest danger because he's not the quickest guy in an exchange. He's a hard puncher, but he's not the quickest puncher in an exchange. So I just think that's going to play a factor, and I just think Rowley will cause issues, but he won't cause issues for long, and he's not smart enough to change it. While he's awkward, he's just not smart enough to change up his game plan to affect Ryan even more than he really should in this fight. It'll be interesting though, because like I said, it's all the factors: the fact that you're welterweight, the fact that you're back off you're back off of it, and you're off for Austrian. For Ryan, there's a lot to prove, because even for him, even though he somehow came out the victor of the Haney fight in terms of PR, despite him taking Austrian and all that, people will still question whether or not he can be a dangerous fighter if he's not on the Austrian, because once you fail a drugs test, it always comes into question whether or not you are the same fighter as you were before. And if not, then we question your whole career that, oh, well, this guy clearly was taking something back then, and that's why it doesn't look the same. But he's a big star, and there's so many fights on the horizon for him. I mean, in October, the plan is if Ryan and Haney win, they're going to have a rematch. You've also got Conor Benn flying down there tonight and he's in New York, ringside. To him, that's a fight he probably wants to set up between himself and Ryan Garcia, because if they set that up, that would probably sell well as well, similar to the Eubank fight. But if you do that in America, it'll still sell, and they can definitely build that promo up well. But yeah, so for Ryan, there's a lot on the line because you've got to get a win and you've got to look good because you've been out for a year. At the end of the day, you got one of the best career performances in almost stopping Haney and beating him up for 12 rounds, but it doesn't count. But people remember that. But the problem is, it was a year ago. You failed a drugs test in between, and that's why you've been out for a year. Relevancy matters as well in boxing, especially when you want to become a proper pay-per-view bona fide star. You've got to be relevant as well. And he's stayed out for too long. He's got to get a knockout to put himself back on the radar. But it's interesting because it's like the whole Austrian thing. I'm not sure how they cleared that. I need to look into it. It just doesn't look. It just looks like one of those situations when someone big with money came along and said, I wanted to use Ryan. Everything kind of fell into place to allow Ryan to come back into the sport at this time. So for me, there will always be a question mark around Ryan's career. And going forward, I know he will be like Canelo, where he will be treated differently with a different yardstick and with different set of rules, and that he probably could be on something again, and it's not going to get tested. And if it does come up, someone in the drugs testing organization will probably just say, "Hey, get rid of that one because that's Ryan's one. Don't test that. Don't show that."
We've just seen someone that's failed 2 drugs tests and everything has got swept under the carpet. So, all honesty, with the whole Austrian thing, I'm not even looking into it too much. I think he's going to bounce. I think Ryan would have won that fight with the Austrian or without.
The problem is that's not the question. The problem is you cheated. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not you think he's better than Haney or not. He cheated. And you always, with any drug cheat, you always question their entire career. You always have to question it because we know how easy it is to cheat drugs tests. Drugs tests, if people don't know this, drugs tests are not like this firewall that just stops every cheater in the sport. So many people have so many ways to get around it. The fact, if you get caught, it just basically means you're somehow stupid enough to get caught. But the moment you get caught, it questions your whole career because you got caught. There's evidence against you that you used something. So yeah, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say. I mean, I'm more inclined to believe that 90% of these athletes are using PEDs anyway. So it is a case of if you're caught, you're stupid to get caught more than anything else. But yeah, I mean, you do raise a very concrete point there, where once you are caught, everything else does come into question, and I totally hear that, most definitely.
It's the same thing with Canelo. I rate him. He's a great fighter. Everyone knows skills-wise good. On the biggest fight of his career, not the biggest, because maybe the fight was bigger, but on one of the biggest fights of his career, and it was a fight he was ducking for quite a while because he didn't want to fight that. He got caught taking clenbuterol. No matter how they tried to go about clearing it.
Do you want to hear a theory of mine? I genuinely think he got caught for Clen just so that they could delay the rematch even further, just to age out Triple G a bit more, because he did not want that rematch anytime soon, and it played into his favor. If anything, he's another person that got caught failing a drugs test, and it ended up being better for his career in the long run because he got more time to wait for GGG, and then he ended up getting a draw, and it was a aged Golovkin at that time as well, and everything just played into his hand really. So yeah,
and that's the problem we kind of see is like you always come into question his career. It's like in the biggest fight against a guy you didn't want to fight, you cheated. It was proven you cheated. No matter how you want to go about clearing it, everyone got good lawyers and they can spin something some way. You cheated, and that's the end of it. And the same thing, there are genuine cases where people didn't cheat and something was contaminated when it shouldn't have been and whatnot. But most of the time, especially when it comes to these big fights, it's just convenient that X, Y, and Z has happened. They've cheated. That's it. That's what's happened. And at the end of the day, I'm not naive. I know people cheat, but if you got caught, you got caught. Like, people do crime. The ones that get caught, those are the ones that go to jail. Like, that's what happens. If the ones that got caught didn't go to jail, you wouldn't have law and order. In the same way, you don't have law and order going on in boxing, because certain fighters like Conor Benn, like Ryan Garcia, like Canelo, like Tyson Fury, they know, if I take something, I know that if I have enough money and backing and I generate enough thing, people are going to back me. And no one's going to let me go. Like, no one's going to stop me from fighting, because they know how much I mean to the sport, how much I bring to the sport. Even Anthony Joshua. I'm not accusing anything, but let's be real. It wouldn't be surprising if it came out in a documentary or something that, oh, for 10 years he's been using something and they've been hiding it. Look how much money he brings. Of course they would hide it. I don't have any evidence for this, but it wouldn't be surprising if that happened. We've seen it happen many times. So one of the things I don't enjoy about the last 2 weeks is the headliners in Conor Benn and Ryan Garcia getting their opportunities literally off of the back of a failed drugs test to make millions in the sport, because it just shows all the other fighters, you can cheat, just make sure you bring in a lot of money. That's fine, and that's it. You can cheat, you can do whatever you want. So it doesn't set a great standard, and it shows that boxing's always been morally dubious.
It's not going to be the most morally correct.
This is like very obvious what's happening, and everyone's just ignoring it for the sake of, oh, I want to get press passes and I don't want to piss off Turkey and whatnot. When really and truly, if you're a journalist or you're someone in the media or whatever, you should be calling these inconsistencies out. Like, that's the whole point of it. Or else why the hell would we care? Why would we need media journalists in the first place, and boxing journalists and football journalists? They call out these inconsistencies.
I totally agree, but that's a quick ticket to losing your board passes, and next thing you know, you're not getting invited to these presses. So it's a sticky situation where I think boxing journalism as a whole right now is in the absolute gutter, and especially when you look at the fact there's more ways to consume media now than ever before, and it's just more and more shit being peddled. But it is what it is. What can you do?
Yeah. So not really much. There's not much to do. It's just this is what it is. On the undercard of this event tomorrow. It's tomorrow night, by the way, for people that don't know. It's tomorrow. It's not Saturday night. It's tomorrow night. Obviously, if you're UK, if you're watching this from the UK, it's in the night. It's at 3 a.m. It's on a Friday, so don't get confused and miss it. Devin Haney makes his return as well, and he's taking on former unified 140-pound champion Jose Ramirez. For a comeback fight for both guys, those are okay names, Rolly and Ramirez. Again, they're not the fights you really care too much to see, but they're decent. The only issue with this, I'd say, is I think Jose Ramirez is way past what he used to be, and so I think this fight will just end up becoming a case of wondering whether or not how much has Haney lost in terms of sharpness since the last fight. Is there any lasting effects from his loss? Not loss. It's a no contest now, but from his battering of Ryan Garcia, and it's kind of just a test to see where he's at with himself after being a year out from taking that. I think Ramirez is a good combination puncher coming forward, pressure fighter. He's a bit slow with his feet, but at his peak, he's able to close the distance, let his hands go, and he just puts hell in his leather gloves and just hits anything that's in front of him. The head, body, whatever it is, just backing up to the ropes. Typical Mexican style, and breaking down and grinding down his opponents. In the last couple years, especially his last fight with Arnold Barboza, who's good, it's been harder for him to cut the ring off properly. He can't close the distance as well as he normally does. His feet are quite slower. His sharpness isn't there. He struggles to just pin down and movers. And when they start countering him, he's getting stuck and he's getting frozen a bit. And then he's not really throwing back too much himself because he can't get into the space quick enough, and he can't think quick enough to let go of his shots, whether or not he should, go to the body, go to the head. He's now overthinking it because of how much slower he's become. And I think the same thing will happen here in the Barboza fight with Haney, where Haney's just going to get to boxing. He's going to get behind his jab. He's going to, he's going to move. He's going to pot shot him. He's going to counter. At times when Ramirez does overextend, he's going to look to counter him and maybe throw a combination. But I think Haney one thing we'll see from Devin Haney is how much of your confidence is still there. Are you able to sometimes hold yourself in the pocket, get a shot off, and then move, or are you that scared now of getting hit because you got hit 3 times that you take less risks in a fight and it becomes a boring performance where you're not actively trying to beat him up, you're point scoring more because you want to protect your chin. So it'll be very interesting to see that because, again, what's on the line is the whole Ryan rematch for him. But it'll be interesting to see because if Jose Ramirez even has a little percentage left of what he used to be, he'll definitely keep coming forward and he'll try to make it a tough night for Haney. I mean, he's coming to win. And he's going to be in his face for all 12 rounds, however long it lasts. And again, there's that welterweight. So we'll see how Devin Haney's power looks. I mean, his power hasn't looked that threatening at lightweight nor at super lightweight. So we'll see whether or not at welterweight, maybe there might be a difference because he's not draining himself as much. So he's able to put a bit more on his shots now and he's not as weak. But we'll see because you never know when it comes to weight, especially when people boil down the way they do. But I expect Devin to put on a decent boxing performance, get behind his jab, move, pot shot him, and make Ramirez chase ghosts all night and win a decision. What's your thoughts on that?
I actually think this fight has the potential to be the biggest banana peel out of the lot. Ramirez isn't the fighter he once was. And, he did look very lethargic and everything was just that bit slower against Barboza in the last fight. The age is playing a factor, but I did think maybe it's a case of inactivity as well that crept in. He does have that fight under his belt and, take nothing away from him. I know it's a shell of his former fighting self, but Ramirez was a very good operator back in his day, in his prime. And, he comes forward a lot. He hits hard enough, great pressure fighter. And even though he won't have the foot speed to really contend with Devin Haney, I think Haney has to fight a very calculated fight and be mentally switched on throughout the whole fight to avoid any potential mishaps. Because I think Ramirez could catch him. And, the way Haney fights, he's not a big puncher, but he's someone that's always taken advantage of his dimensions of always being a bigger fighter, because he's always been a bigger fighter at the 135 division, 130 and whatnot. Now that he's fighting at 147 and he's fighting someone of the same size, and we've seen some of his attributes get taken away, even with Ryan Garcia, with him not being the bigger man anymore. I think there's going to be a lot of issues for him physically if he doesn't maintain discipline and try to box at a distance and keep up an educated jab, and make Ramirez lunge in, counter him, and, make him reset. Because Ramirez has more than enough tools to hurt Haney. And I don't think Haney has the hardest of chins. He's susceptible to being hurt. We've seen that a few times. So it's a thing where it is a major banana peel, but you'd hope that Haney has the confidence and just really the concentration to keep up a boxing plan, keep Ramirez at bay, have him missing coming forward, and to really shut him out and win the fight on points. Do I see a Haney KO or anything? Not at all. I don't think his power is going to travel up to 147. Of course, that's only speculation. I might be totally wrong. Everyone likes to have their guesses with how power is going to translate at a certain weight and how a fight is going to look at a certain weight, etc. And it's all speculation until we actually see it tomorrow night. But I do think this is potentially could be the toughest fight, but Haney could make very easy work of it as well. I just think there's definitely. I can see several ways Ramirez wins is all what I'm trying to say. And if I was a gambling man, I think the odds on Ramirez might actually be good value for money and worth a little punt. But I'm not a gambling man. I'm just here giving my hot takes. So on Ringside Fracas. So here we are.
Yeah, not this close to Mugger, but anyway. But yeah, no, I agree. I think one thing it'll be keen to watch is when Ramirez does, because he'll have times where he will be able to back Haney up to the ropes and maybe be able to throw some combinations. Does Haney still have that confidence in his composure to be able to ride the shots or duck out of the way? Because sometimes, especially when people have been knocked down or knocked out, they tend to overreact on shots, and because they don't want to get hit again.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to this, and
Mhm.
it's a good litmus test for him to come back and test the waters again. So like I said, it's these fights aren't we're not clamoring for these fights, but it's intrigue. This whole week is intriguing. It's not the greatest thing in the world. It's not like Turkey's done anyone. He's done a Mazzoline. He hasn't done anything insane, but he's put on interesting, intriguing fights. Some
You
are
know what?
poor. So, yeah.
Just to cut you off, sorry. He hasn't done the crazy thing like you said, but this whole event, I see it as like you're setting up with the jab. Like this weekend, essentially, if all of the favorites win and the storyline goes the way we expect it to and whatnot, we're going to be set up with some huge fights for boxing in the long run. So I just see it as like this is kind of like the calm before the storm, and you're getting the orchestra to start playing. You're getting an orchestra to start playing the song once and for all after this, and it's just like getting everything ready. So we hope we see the favorites win, the names win, just because they're gonna bring more excitement to the potential fights. But yeah, I think every single fight here is a potential test. It's gonna test the fighters. There's some intrigue, especially for boxing fans that have actually watched these fighters and know who's fighting and whatnot. And if all things goes to plan, then we're going to be set up with some mega fights with some American stars. So
Yeah. Yeah. But the problem is what you do, for example, when you had AJ and Wilder on the same card. You had the plan of March. We wanted to make AJ versus Wilder. Well, guess what? It all went to crap because Wilder didn't win. And all these plans could all go to crap, which is why if you want to make a fight, you don't set it up. You just do it. If you try to set it up, it's boxing. Anything can literally happen. Any punch can land. It doesn't mean the fight is rubbish. It's just the nature of the sport. Any little miscalculation, any just little tiny mistake, and that's it. So I hope it. Let's see what happens. I'm not the biggest fan of setting things up like this when it doesn't need to be. When you can just run it down. Not like
I
these
don't
guys.
know. Do you think? I mean, do you like, for example, someone like Teofimo Lopez, who can potentially be a star? He's almost an enigma. But he still doesn't have that star quality. You think you could chuck him in with a Haney or a Garcia right now?
But the
And
problem,
have that
the problem is you couldn't do that unless you asked him to lose his belt. The only reason he's fighting Barboza now is getting money for it, and it's also it's his mandatory. If he doesn't fight it, he loses his title. Teofimo, one of the big things he wants to be is a world champion. He's not in this for anything. He will do the big fights, but he wants to also hold that belt. So he wants guarantees, and that's why in this week he's fighting. He's got the toughest fight out of everyone. Out of everyone on this entire weekend, and you got Canelo, Inoue, all these guys fighting. Teofimo has the toughest fight out of all of them. Arnold Barboza is a proper test, and we'll move on to that fight. We'll talk about that. Arnold Barboza is a proper tough test. People don't talk about Arnold Barboza enough. This guy had 4 fights in the last 12 months or 16 months. He fought Sean McComb, he fought Jack Catterall, and he fought Sean McComb, he fought Jose Ramirez in November, and then in February he beat Jack Catterall. And look again, in May he's back out again. He's active. He's winning the fights he's not meant to be winning, and he's a proper tough stylistically as well for Teofimo to fight. Teofimo could definitely lose this fight and get chucked to the wolves here, where they say, "Okay, that's it. We're done with you because you clearly can't string a couple wins together anymore." Like Arnold Barboza will fight the way he fights. He's not interested in entertaining the fans. He's interested in getting his lead hand going, getting combinations off to move the opponent backwards, and then taking his time and being a bit negative at times and just boxing at range. And then again, coming forward when he needs to, landing combinations when he can sense the opponent's footwork is off and messy. But he'll fight to his pace. He'll fight to his standard, and he'll make the opponent have to get into this chess match with him. And that's tough for Teofimo because we've seen him against movers and he struggles. He struggles a lot in chasing down and cutting off the ring. He loses fights. He lost the fight against Martin and he lost the fight against Ortiz. And the only reason he won because he's Teofimo Lopez and there's always a bigger fight on the horizon. But he lost these fights clearly. And this is a fight I think if he loses, he is definitely losing because that's it. Like if I mean, what I mean by that, if he loses on the card, it will be too wide for him not to be able to rob it. And also, if he gets another robbery win, then that doesn't do him any favors either. He has to show out here. Teofimo is a good fighter. When it comes down to it, he's a very good fighter. He's athletically gifted. He's a good boxer punch. He can come forward. He can go backwards. He can counter well. He showboats when he's in the groove. When he really is up for a fight and he's in the mood, he's in the groove, he's hard to beat. We saw that against Josh Taylor. We saw that against Lomachenko. We saw that against Richard Comey. The problem is when he has to start thinking more and he has to actually start doing his job, he can't do that. He can't just get into a fight and get into learning the tactics to cut off and changing it up and asking his coach, asking his dad basically, look, what do you want me to do when I get him to the corners? He's not doing anything. He's just doing the same things again and again. And that's one of his biggest issues is his mental ill discipline. He doesn't want to be able to learn all aspects of the sport so that he can get better and he can beat these guys because he's had the same issues again and again. And I think Barboza is a much bigger dude compared to Ortiz and Martin. He'll give him more problems when he comes forward, Barboza, and he has those combinations. But Barboza won't come forward all day because he knows Teofimo will thrive in countering him at times. But he'll come forward in the moments where he knows he's got Teofimo backed up and Teofimo can't throw. Teofimo's in a tough one here. I think he's probably going to lose. Genuinely, I think he's probably going to lose. Unless he puts on a stand-up performance, I think he's going to lose because Barboza, Teofimo's last fight was against Claggett in the summer. Before that, it was Ortiz in last February. He hasn't fought since June. I think it was June or July. And, look how active Barboza's been. I saw he's 4 fights in the last 12 months. This is the 5th one. A run of Sean McComb, Jose Ramirez, and Jack Catterall was very good. And Jack Catterall's a tough fighter to fight. We've spoken about him before, where he's tough because the way he fights. And Arnold Barboza went to Manchester and beat him. That guy's in the form of his life. That guy, if he beats Teofimo, he'll look at himself and go, look, I'm the number one here. Look at the run I've been on. Look at the guys I beat. I'm the number one here. Who else is here? And he's all about business. He's doing the work that's needed. Teofimo has to lock in. The only way Teofimo Lopez really wins this, and I thought he had a chance when I saw him link up with Eddie Reynoso. I thought, okay, Reynoso's going to teach him how to cut the ring off better. He's going to teach him how to throw the looping shots and set the shots up so he can break down the guard. But now he's back to his dad again, and obviously Eddie Reynoso can't be there because he's with Canelo the next night, so he can't be there. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I can't see Teofimo pulling out another all-time great performance to beat Barboza, which I think he needs. He's done that twice in Lomachenko and Taylor, but those are guys who will come forward and come at him. Barboza's not the same, and I think he's going to have another performance similar to Martin and Ortiz, and you're just going to see he's just limited in that aspect, and he's not improving, and he's not elite anymore. And I think he's going to lose, and I think unless a robbery happens, he's probably going to lose. But if he pulls it off, then you got to give it to him. This is probably one of the this is like his top 3 in terms of wins: Taylor, Lomachenko, and then it'll be Barboza, because that's a really good win if he beats him. But I just can't see it. He just doesn't inspire the confidence in me to say, yeah, you know what, you can improve. And you had a dip here and there, and there was all fight. He hasn't shown me any improvements. He still fights the same. So I just can't see Teofimo coming out of this well. But if he does, like I said, credit to him. If you put him up, I'd even say if you put him up against Boots, I can't go. I'm not going to pick him, but nothing would surprise me at this point.
I could see him. I could see him winning that fight against Boots. I won't even lie to you. The thing with Teo is just he's so good when you fight the fight that he wants. Basically, he's a very limited boxer in that he needs someone to come forward and give him opportunities because he's a phenomenal counter puncher, and he's good at going toe to toe with people that come forward. Whenever, like you said, whenever he has to start doing the thinking, and he's not fighting off of instinct alone, and he's having to methodically cut off the ring and set up his shots while backing an opponent down, that's where all of his talents and everything goes out the window. He's just not capable of doing it seems, and we haven't seen the improvements with him learning how to do those things at all. So I totally hear you. I think what you said has echoed my thoughts on this fight entirely. I think if Teo's going to win, he's going to have to look incredibly good in the spots where Barboza is going to give him a chance. When he decides to come forward and push the pace a bit, Teo's going to have to fight incredibly well in those small bursts, and he just has to not let Barboza nick the fight. Whenever Barboza throws, he has to try throw back, and almost look busy if that's the case. Because if it's going to be a case where Teo is pushing the pace of the fight and he's going to fight the way Barboza wants by trying to cut off the ring and chase after him, it's going to be a losing night for Teofimo, 100%.
Yeah, and we're not sitting here saying it's impossible for Teo to win. It's just
not at all.
It's not consistent enough for you to back him to be consistent enough to win these type of fights. He's just not good. Like, to be a proper elite fighter or a good world champion, you also have to have a level of consistency about you. Teo doesn't have that. Once the style's not ready for him, like they're not prepared for him, he doesn't have that consistency to win the fight. And that's the one thing that's always been an issue with him, is he's always hot and cold. He's either very good or he's very poor. There's never an in-between where he just does enough to win. And so that's why I just think, again, he's going to blow hot or cold either way. And it's more likely that he's going to blow cold than he's going to blow hot. So, it'll be interesting. This is a very big fight. And I'm watching it because I'm like, this is where Teofimo could really make or break his career. He wins this, he gets the biggest fights he can possible. Haney, Garcia, Boots, whatever fight he wants, they'll get it to. But he needs to get through Barboza, because Barboza on a big run, and this is the type where you're on a big run and here's the mountaintop, and he's going to go for it.
He's got all that momentum behind him. People underestimate how important that momentum and confidence in winning fights is for a boxer. It's huge.
100%. And so the next fight that's that whole card. Obviously, on the undercard, there is Reito Tsutsumi making his debut. He's a Japanese prospect. He's a Japanese amateur, really good amateur. I mean, he's fantastic. Fighting at super featherweight, making his pro debut, which shows you Turkey's really behind him, because he's signed him, put his pro debut on this whole New York Times Square card. So it'll be interesting to see how Reito's career is managed and how he gets on, because those guys in Japan, when a guy comes through and he's proper, they're proper. They go through. I mean, they don't just become pro as well. Like, he had to do a whole test to become pro. They do pro tests where they get you in sparring gear and you spar in front of judges, and the judges just decide whether or not you are good enough to go pro. Beyond that, he's won national championships. He's been through it all. It'll be very good to see him. I think he's at 22 now, so it'll be very good to see what he can do, especially at super featherweight. That's a very decent division. So keep an eye out for that kid, because he could do a lot, and he could impress a lot of people on that card. So, and then over in Saudi Arabia on Saturday, I'm not sure. I don't think Turkey's going to be out to all these unless he's literally flying out the day after. But anyway,
probably got a private jet on hand.
Yeah, but isn't it too taxing to do these?
It is, but
especially if you're going from one country.
The time zones as well and whatnot. Yeah. I don't know, man.
But of course, in Riyadh, you've got Canelo making it. I think this is his first fight outside of Mexico and this is his first fight outside of Mexico and the USA. Taking on William Scull to take back his IBF world title to become a 2-time undisputed super middleweight champion. Formality, he was meant to fight William Scull to defend his IBF belt. He didn't. He chose to fight Berlanga, so he got stripped. And then Riyadh season got involved, and he's fighting Scull. Again, like you said, Adam, it's a jab to the setup of the real fight. The real fight they want to set up in September is, of course, Canelo versus Crawford. This is just so to get Canelo active, because he always fights on Cinco de Mayo, and also to get the undisputed title back. So then when they promote the Canelo Crawford fight, the undisputed title's on the line. It'll be undisputed champion versus former undisputed champion, and how they pick it up. The actual fight itself, William Scull is not. Yeah, he's nothing special to me. Cuban moves. He can move well. He's got an okay jab, but he's too static with his shots. He doesn't move often. He can hold his feet a lot of the times, and he can back up to the ropes and again just shell up and take punishment. And I think he might give Canelo a couple issues early on. I just can't see him. Doing much to really affect Canelo. He's quite big. He's a decently sized super middleweight. But I think the speed of Canelo and the what's it called?
Pressure.
The pressure, the countering. Like when Canelo goes through the gears, he's able to be really good, and he does that. He's been doing that in a couple of his fights where he will turn the gear up in a couple rounds. He done that against Belanga and he dropped him. He done that against Munguia, dropped him. He done that against Charlo and dropped him. But what he's doing now in the later half of his career is he's not upping the gears as much throughout the whole fight. He's going to do enough to win and make it seem like it's comfortable for him, but not that much to clear out the opponent because he doesn't want to push his body that far. He's 34. He's at that stage of his career where I'm just seeing things out now. He might do against Crawford because he knows the occasion will be big and he'll go through it. But right now, for these last couple of fights, I think it follows the same pattern. I think he's going to go in there. He's going to walk down the opponent. He's going to turn through the gears. He's going to get that timing down where he finds a shot and he drops them. And then beyond that, he might look for a finish. But then when he doesn't, he notices that the person's recovered. He then goes back to work. Gear 1, gear 2, just backing them up, going to the body, going to the head, and then seeing out the rest of the fight. And then just getting his title back. And then off we go to September to fight Crawford. It's a nothing fight. It's more of a case of it's a stay busy fight. That's really it. I mean, that's been Canelo's career for the last 2 years. It's been stay busy. It's just stay busy. Let's stay busy. I mean, William Scull can win. You just don't back it. I've seen his performances, and he hasn't fought anyone top. Shishkin, when he fought and won the IBF title, even that fight was poor. It was very poor. No one wanted to see a rematch of that again. That's why this fight's happening. And Shishkin should have won that fight. In fact, William Scull's just not great, and he's just gonna be there to get beaten up. I question his toughness because I don't know how tough he really is. He's taken shots. Obviously, Canelo hits much harder than who's faced before. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a Canelo decision. It's going to be similar to the Belanga or the Munguia fights where it's fun. It might be a bit fun to watch, but you just know there was so much more to Canelo than there used to be, and now it's just a shell. Not a shell, but it's not what it used to be. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, listen, for the first couple of rounds, it might be a tricky fight. He is a good mover, and he's just going to be on his bike, I think. But it's just going to be a case of we're going to see Canelo just applying pressure and start to wear him down bit by bit. And I hope it's a case of Canelo trying to put on a performance out there in Saudi and, kind of showing a different Canelo to what we've seen the past couple of years with his first fight with Riyadh season. But it's probably just going to be a fight where he just does enough, gets the win. It's not a fight that anyone's really been excited for. And, we just hope he goes ahead and gets this fight done so we can start talking about the real fight that's going to happen in September that everyone wants to see. So it's just a stepping stone fight, in my personal opinion. And like you said, something that keeps him active, which is important in this part of his career where you don't want to be out of the ring for too long. So,
Yeah, Adam says Canelo's utter display of cowardness has hurt boxing. Is this your burner account?
I didn't say that.
Your burner account, yeah. Canelo makes fights quickly to stay away from Benavidez. Yeah, I mean he ducked Benavidez, but now he's gone.
I mean,
but now he can't do that anymore because Benavidez is gone. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to this new superstar versus nobody rivalry. Yeah, I mean that's what Canelo's going to keep doing, and I think Canelo also. I think Canelo's in a similar position to Crawford because Crawford, I think, admitted to Virgil Ortiz he's got 2 fights left. I think those 2 fights will be the Canelo fight and then the rematch, and then that's it. They'll call it a day, and they'll retire with the amount of money that they got in the bank. So that's it. You're seeing the twilight years now of Canelo, and hopefully, if he's not going on to try to fight the best, then just he calls it a day at some point. Or maybe he might fight Jake Paul. Who knows? No, that's always in the.
Who knows? We're not going to see him against the top of the top. Mind you, I mean, the division of 168, there's nothing really exciting.
No, there are exciting fighters. They're coming through. You've got guys like Osles Iglesias, you've got Christian Mbili, you've got Diego Pacheco.
I mean, Mbili, yeah. I could also see Thingy coming up soon as well. My brain's gone blank. Kazaki. What's his name?
Oh, Janibek.
Yeah, Janibek. I can see Janibek moving up to 168 very soon as well.
So hopefully when he does retire, Canelo, and he vacates the titles, you can see these lot go to war over it, because there'll be some good fights between them. On the undercard, you've got Martin Bakole returning to fight F.A. Jagba. This was the first fight that was meant to happen. It was actually meant to happen. I think they initially planned for it to happen on the Eubank Ben card, and then because Bakole got knocked out bad on the against Parker on short notice, they moved it to Saturday night. It's on paper, this is a very fun fight. Two big heavyweights. They punch really hard. Their defense isn't that fantastic. It's going to be violent. It's going to be fun to watch. The one thing, like I said, the one big factor, the big question, looming factor is always going to be around this fight is, has Bakole had enough time to recover, train, and get into 100%? Because obviously he went on short notice to fight Joseph Parker, just on 2 days' notice. He got knocked out bad, and that was at the end of February. So it's March, April. It's literally been 2 months turnaround, and now he's back again. And when it comes to knockouts, you can never be too careful. Because you've got a guy like Ajagba. Ajagba is stiff, but he punches hard. He doesn't move a lot, but he punches really hard and straight. He lands that right hand, and I think he can land the right hand on Martin Bakole. We have to see whether or not Bakole has the ability to eat it properly the same way, because it can all change, especially with one punch. All of that can change in terms of how, your ability, your resistance, and everything like that. But I think the way this goes, I think Bakole is fun when he's going forward and he's close. Bakole wants to be in your face, throwing short shots like uppercuts, hooks, looping shots, using that jab to come forward. I think you'll see the fight will be more closer than it is at range. When it's at range, Ajagba will have a lot of success getting his jab 100%. And his right hand down the middle. But as soon as Bakole is close, he's going to throw the shots from the most looping angles, and Ajagba won't be able to see it. And I think Ajagba's going to get knocked out in this one. I think Bakole really going to stick it on him and get knocked out. But seeing Bakole knocked out wouldn't be surprising to me, because if Ajagba lands and he can't take the punch the same way he used to, he's getting his lights cleaned. This is fun. There's loads of jeopardy. Like, I'm going with Bakole. I think the fight stylistic just suits him because he's able to close that distance. That pressure he puts is going to be hell for Ajagba. Ajagba doesn't protect himself well, and so he's not going to be able to see any of the shots going. And he's been hurt before by lesser punchers like Guido Vianello. He's been dropped by Frank Sanchez. I think Bakole punches much harder than those guys and much quicker. And I think he's going to get hurt, dropped, and then he's going to get stopped. What are your thoughts on seeing Bakole come back?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it in that perspective, it actually hasn't been as long as I thought. February seemed so long ago. That
February 22nd.
Yeah, so it's literally March. So I don't know why it seems so much longer than it actually is. And we've seen the fact Bakole can get hurt, because it's not like Joseph Parker has had a knockout win like any time in the past couple of years. He hasn't won by knockout in a very long while, so there's question marks. The thing with the Bakole, he will give you an opportunity to box well. Like, he's there to be hit, and like we've seen even in the Anderson fight, there were times where Anderson boxed well and he could have continued to box well. He just didn't fight the right fight, in my opinion. When you start trying to trade shots with Bakole on the inside, it's going to be a very, very long night or very quick night, however you want to see it, because he's going to eat you up on the inside. It's about really keeping him at distance, and that's why I think Ajagba, especially with his straight right hand, can cause Bakole problems. Keeping it at a mid-range fight and maybe more of a longer range fight. don't let Bakoli come in and have his way. But theory is one thing, and the way the fight goes on is completely different thing. I think it's going to be a very fun fight. Both of them aren't the greatest defensive fighters, as you said. There's just going to be loads of for the casual or for the guy that just wants to see two people smash the living shit out of each other. This is the fight to watch, essentially. So I think it's going to be very exciting. And as you said, would I be surprised if Bakoli gets knocked out again, especially after being hurt that bad not so long ago? I wouldn't be surprised. But I do see a Bakoli win via KO, 100%.
Yeah, and you're so right. This is a good fight, and I like what the heavyweight division's been doing. We've been getting good fights throughout the last 3 years now from them, because it's not just top level fights that are happening; it's also the mid level.
It's these guys. It's these guys that we want to see fighting just as much as well, because it answers so many questions. It gives more clarity in regards to the top heavyweights records as well. With each fight, it kind of gives more of an idea of how good someone's resume is. It's just intrigue. These are interesting fights. I personally like to see these type of fights go ahead. And I'm so glad. The best thing about Riyadh season is we wouldn't have got a fight like Zhang versus Caballero a couple of years ago. Now we're getting these type of fights. And it's just setting up the top 10 heavyweights so nicely, because it's not just about the heavyweight champion. You have all of these fighters around the belt in the top 10 that could all fight it out. And sometimes those fights end up being more fun to watch than the heavyweight title fights. So I'm all for it. And I'm really happy we're getting a fight like this as well. And we'll see. If Bakoli wins this, he's right back in the mix once again. So
yeah. Again, this and the Barboza fight are probably one of the interesting fights. Of the whole weekend. You've also got on the undercard Munguia coming back to rematch Bruno Surace. The getting stopped badly. The way I look at that one, I just don't see that fight. One of the biggest problems with that fight. What do you say?
I said thunder striking twice. I don't see it personally, but
it's lightning, brother. Thunder's a noise.
Yeah, lightning shit.
But I completely agree. It's like in that fight, one of the biggest issues was I feel like mentally, Munguia knew who was in front of him, that he was a non-puncher, so he could take more risk in trying to knock him out. And that's what he tried doing. And so he kept getting caught until that right punch landed. Bruno Surace is a non-puncher. It doesn't mean he can't knock him out again, but it's very unlikely that will happen. Also, because I think Munguia knows, okay, this guy knocked me out. I got to lock in, and I've got to actually take him like I'm fighting Canelo. I can't just put hell to leather and expect him to go away. He's tough. I've got to work on it. And actually, Munguia is now working with Eddie Reynoso, so I'd expect him to actually improve a bit in terms of going forward and being able to cut the ring off. I think Munguia is going to use this opportunity. He knows what's on the line. He's a big star, and he can actually sell a lot. He knows what's on the line. He's not going to mess about in this one, and he's going to get the job done. I think he might stop him because he might go to the body more than he will go to the head as often he was in the first fight. But he's going to be more the same way where AJ fought against Ruiz, in the same, not the same performance, but in the same mentality of I need to get the win. It doesn't matter whatever. This guy is not a nightmare for me. It was just the worst thing that could have happened that night. That right punch that landed. I just need to take things seriously and not even give him the opportunity to land that punch. And I think Munguia will win the rematch. I just don't look at Bruno Surace as the nightmare matchup. I just think Munguia went about things wrong in that fight. He was defensively all over the place, and Surace just capitalized on it and landed the perfect punch. And I think this Saturday, Munguia will change that and he'll get back to it. But there'll always be that question mark over Munguia. Damn, the guy with 4 knockouts knocked you out. We're coming for you, especially the other super middleweights. They'll look at that. Berlanga, for example, he'll look at that and you go, hey, set that fight up. I could definitely knock him out if I land. But it's a good fight. I think that's a rematch that needed to happen because I like the fact that Surace is now getting 2 big paydays. He's getting another payday. He deserves it. Fair enough. He went to Munguia's hometown and knocked him out in front of all his people. He deserves his money. But Munguia needs to now use this opportunity to put doubt to anything about him. So that's fun. And also Badou Jack is making his comeback after 2 years. He's fighting Noah Mikalian, because obviously when Badu Jack won his last fight, it was against Makabu. He became the WBC champion. Then Badu Jack obviously gets involved with Don King and all of this, and he doesn't really fight. So he becomes champion in recess. No, he didn't get involved with Don King, but he doesn't fight because of injury. So he becomes champion in recess. He's been out for all this time. So then in the same year, Noah Mikalian fought Makabu for the WBC title, won it. And then Mikalian's promoter is Don King. So Don King's been trying to get him a defense for the whole of 2024. And that just, you know how things go with Don King, fights never get made. It just, everything just falls apart. Injury, whatever, it just doesn't get made. Finally, Badu Jack is back, and he's meant to be fighting, I forgot who he was. He was meant to be fighting someone else. I think it was Ryan Wazicki. And then he pulled out, like I think a month ago, and Noah Mikalian stepped up and he said, look, I won the title. You took it off of me to give it back to your champion in recess who came back after 2 years. Let's fight. Let's put it on. So this will put the stamp on who the WBC Cruiserweight champion is. It's not the biggest fight, but I think Mikalian should win it. Badu Jack's 41, coming off of 2 years. Mikalian's physical. He's a presence. He's not the most clean and technical boxer. He'll get caught, but I think he'll just be too much for Badu Jack to deal with. I think he'll win the 12 rounds. But it's interesting. It's interesting to, at least that belt now will be in circulation, because it hasn't been in circulation for such a while with all this nonsense been going on. And it needs to be, especially when you've got Jaya Patai in the mix, and you've got Zerdo in the mix, and everyone wants unifications in that division. What we could have, Jaya's fighting in June. If Mikalian wins, you could make Jaya Patai versus Mikalian in like the September time, and then Zerdo defends his title, and then that's it. You move on. So that'll be fun. On Sunday, we've got Naoya Inoue taking on Ramon Cardenas Jr. I'm going to watch it. It's just there's not much to say. Cardenas is not the level of opponent you should be fighting. But again, it's that thing that you said, Adam, isn't it? Jab to make the big fight. Because now, today they've come out, Eddie Hearn's come out and said that the deal's been done between Inoue and MJ Ahmadaliev for September Japan fight. The problem with that is MJ's shit as well. I don't like, everyone can do the whole matchroom rimming thing, innit? But all those people that,
can you hear? I know who that's aimed at. Do you want to say any names?
It's not just him. It's loads of people. But he does it to troll. Lewis does it to troll. Lewis trolls a lot. There are people who genuinely believe it though. Like those people who say, "Oh, MJ deserves his shot" and whatnot. Cool. They won't watch MJ fight though. They won't actually go and watch him, and they won't ask. And whenever you ask them, okay, if he deserves the fight, how come he lost to Marlon Tapales? He lost his titles to Marlon Tapales, right?
Exactly. Inoue is going to knock his hat flying. He's going to send his hat flying, man. So. But
the good thing about that is, and then September, and then in December, if he knocks him out and he, Inoue comes through it normal, December they might set up Nick Ball, and I want to see that.
I want to see that. Nick Ball. You know what? I know we kind of disagreed in terms of jabbing and then setting up the right fight. In this case, I don't think there was no jab needed. This was like AJ against Ngannou, where man just ran up and throw the right hand. We should have made the Inoue versus MJ fight should be happening tomorrow, and then Nick should be happening for you. I think personally, because this to me, I'm sorry, this fight is pointless. There's no reason for this fight to be happening. I don't know what. You don't need to set up Inoue higher. He's clearly the big superstar of that division. There's no setting up. And MJ was the only question mark left, if you want to say it's a question mark, in that division. They got this Italian waiter or a Mexican waiter coming through. Like I don't know personally, but it is what it is. What can we do?
For someone of his standard, especially if you look at the last couple of fights, okay, the Neri fight was good. That's a fight he really needed to do, and it was a great fight. He really 100%. Showed out in that one.
Yeah.
Then beyond that, what are we doing? I mean, he fought TJ Doheny when he didn't need to, but of course, it was the whole Sam Goodman affair. Then he was meant to fight Sam Goodman in December. Sam pulled out, so he fought that Min Yoon Kim, whoever that was. And he was rubbish. But and even on short notice, there were so many other fighters that they could have gotten on short notice that would have made more sense. And there's another fight that they've actually built up to for no reason. The only reason they're building this up is literally because what's it called? They wanted to bring Inoue back to America so they can kind of build the profile. So when they do these next 3 fights, which the plan is September MJ, December Ball, and then come back down again in April in Japan to fight Nakatani in the super fight. That's insane. That's a big fight. Those are big fights, fine. But you don't need to do this one. This is just not really going to do anything much for people. And okay, it keeps Inoue busy, but he's had his last 3 opponents are Cardenas, Kim, and Doheny. That's not even a world champion level one. That's very poor. So he's just got to deliver, and he's got to get these next 3 done. And there can't be any movement on them. They have to get done because it is looking poor for him right now. I mean, he's a great fighter, and he shouldn't be spending time fighting these type of level. It should always be the go and go after the top guys. So
yeah,
he knocks him out whenever he wants. There's no other prediction to that. He knocks him out whenever he wants. Whenever Inoue decides that this fight is done, he's knocking him out. On the undercard, you've got Rafael Espinosa defending his title against Eddie Vasquez. That's a very good fight. That'll be fun. Be violent. Rafael Espinosa is huge. I think like 6 foot something at featherweight. But and Vasquez is very crafty with his boxing. He gave Joe Cordina hell. He gave Ray Ford hell. He gives people hell. And he's going to do the same with what's his name? He's going to do the same with Rafael Espinosa. But I think Espinosa will come through. And I think Espinosa's just ability to just overwhelm fighters, especially close up, it will show through. And that's the guy I want Inoue to fight. Imagine that Inoue at 5'5" against a 6 foot featherweight. That would be fun. That would be so fun.
That would be very exciting to watch. Yeah,
Inoue would be in a lot of danger in that one because that would be really good. But yeah, look, that's the whole weekend. Loads of fights that we covered. Make sure you tune in to all those fights. Remember, tomorrow you've got the Ryan card, so make sure you don't miss it because like I said, you don't think it's on a Saturday. It's tomorrow. Saturday, of course, you've got Canelo. I think that's normal US time. I would have to check that again. And then again, Inoue on Sunday.
Is Canelo US time?
I think so. Yeah, because it makes sense. Because I mean, all the guys that are
he's going to be fighting at like 6, 7 in the morning.
Yeah, but all the guys that are on the Canelo fight, 6 in the morning in Riyadh. All the guys on the Canelo card are Mexican. So you've got Canelo, you've got Munguia, you've got the new the silver medalist, Olympic silver medalist Marco Verde making his pro debut on that card.
He looks very good.
So it's like, for me, I just thought there's no point doing this in Riyadh. You should have just done this in Mexico, and you would have sold out like a whole flipping stadium and 2 stadiums with that. But they have to aim it towards the Mexican audience because there's so many Mexicans on that card. And then Inoue is obviously normal time in Vegas. But so make sure you catch all of those fights, and we'll be reviewing them. It's good we've got a bank holiday. We can be reviewing them next week. So make sure you keep tuning in. Make sure you like, you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Make sure you follow our socials on Twitter at Ringside Fracas and on Instagram at Ringside Fracas. And please stay with us on this journey. Make sure to share it to your friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace. Enjoy the fights.